"You're not getting anything from Grandpa's estate. You weren't even supposed to be here." My father's voice cut through the room like a blade, flat and cold, and nobody said a word to stop him. My mother nodded beside him, arms crossed, agreeing with every syllable. The other relatives just stared at their laps. But I saw it. The quick, nervous glance my parents shared the second someone mentioned the old property deed. That's when I knew. They weren't just cruel. They were scared. My name is Elena Whitmore. I'm 36 years old, and I've spent most of my life being ordinary in every way that mattered to my family. I work as a freelance bookkeeper. I live modestly, in a small apartment with second-hand furniture and a view of a parking lot. But Grandpa never cared about any of that. He was the one person who looked at me and saw something worth building. While my parents treated me like an afterthought, he taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet. I never expected a single dollar from his estate. I always believed his greatest gift to me was the confidence he planted in my chest. Back when nobody else believed I had any. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I didn't have the family's approval or their warmth. But I had something they didn't expect. I had the truth, and I was about to find out just how far they'd go to bury it. If you've ever sat in a room full of people who share your blood but not your love, you know exactly how I felt that day. If your family has ever made you feel like you didn't belong, like you were the outsider at your own table, I want you to know you're not alone. Tell me in the comments if you've ever been shut out of a decision that affected your own life. And if this story is already pulling at something in you, hit that hype button, because what happens next is only the beginning. The estate meeting was supposed to be simple. My father stood at the head of the table and announced that Grandpa's property and remaining assets would be divided among the proper family members. He said it like I wasn't sitting 3 feet away from him. My mother leaned toward my aunt and said, loud enough for me to hear, that Grandpa only helped me out of pity, and that he never meant for me to get anything real. I felt my face burn, but I kept my voice steady. I asked to see the will. I asked to see the estate documents. My father waved his hand like I was a fly buzzing near his food. Everything's already settled, Elena, he said. There's nothing left to discuss. Then my uncle, almost by accident, mentioned an old property deed Grandpa used to talk about. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. It was such a small moment, but it told me everything. I realized right then that the paperwork sitting on that table might not include the one document that actually mattered. In the weeks that followed, they tried everything to push me out. First, they told me I wasn't welcome at any more estate discussions because I was, in their words, making things difficult. Then, at a family dinner, my mother humiliated me in front of everyone, saying I was only fighting for Grandpa's money because I couldn't manage my own finances. I sat there and took it, my throat tight, my hands shaking under the table. Finally, my father slid a document across to me and told me it was just a formality, something to sign so the estate could move forward. I read it twice. It was a full release of any claim I had to the estate. I didn't sign it. I looked him dead in the eye and said, I'll need time to think about this. He didn't like that answer. But I wasn't asking for his permission anymore. That night, I stopped crying over their rejection and started paying attention. I began writing down every conversation, every contradiction, every strange look between my parents. I wasn't trying to win their love anymore. I was trying to find out exactly what they were hiding. What I found stunned me. Years earlier, I had helped Grandpa organize his files, back when his hands started shaking too much to do it himself. I had scanned his letters, backed up his emails, and archived his old documents, mostly just to help an old man keep his life in order. I never imagined those files would become my weapon. Buried in one email, I found a line from Grandpa that stopped my heart. He'd written about a property, calling it Elena's protection if anything ever happens to me. I remembered something else too. My father had once asked me to scan an old deed for him. Years ago. When I brought it up recently, he claimed that deed never existed. The pieces started falling into place. The family meeting hadn't been about closure. It had been about pressuring me into giving up my rights before anyone discovered the one file they desperately needed to disappear. And I still had it. I knew I couldn't do this alone, so I reached out to Thomas Reed, the old family lawyer who had handled Grandpa's property matters for decades. Thomas was cautious at first. He warned me that estate disputes can turn ugly fast, and that families rarely come out the other side unchanged. But he agreed to look into it because Grandpa had trusted him completely. After reviewing what I brought him, his expression changed. He confirmed that the property mentioned in Grandpa's old records was missing from the documents my parents had presented. Thomas helped me organize every email, every scan page, every recorded conversation, and he told me to stay quiet until we had solid proof. Meanwhile, my parents grew more confident by the day. They thought I had backed down. They thought the estate was already theirs. The final meeting took place in Thomas's office, all dark wood and quiet tension. The kind of room where every word carries weight. My parents walked in like they'd already won. They laid out their version of the estate and offered me a small settlement to walk away for good. I almost laughed. Instead, I stayed calm and let Thomas do what we'd planned. He interrupted before my father could finish his sentence and placed a folder on the table. Inside was proof that Grandpa had transferred ownership of the disputed property through a separate deed years earlier. I watched the color drain from my mother's face. Then I placed my own folder beside his. Emails, scanned letters, recordings, proof that Grandpa had spoken about protecting that property for me, again and again, over the years. My father tried to argue that the documents were incomplete, that something must be missing. Thomas didn't flinch. He explained calmly and clearly that the deed was verified and legally binding, and that the property could not simply be erased from existence because it was inconvenient for them. I looked at my parents and asked them, quietly, why they lied about the deed. Neither of them answered me. Instead, they turned on each other, each one blaming the other for hiding it in the first place. Thomas leaned back and said something that landed harder than anything else in that room. He told them that pressuring me to sign away my claim could now be used as evidence against them in the dispute. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I simply sat there and refused to give up what Grandpa had deliberately protected for me. And in that silence, I watched my family finally understand something. The woman they had dismissed as powerless had been holding the one piece of evidence that could unravel their entire plan. In the end, I received my rightful share of the estate, including the property Grandpa had fought to protect for me. My parents faced the consequences of what they'd done, and the control they thought they had over our family's inheritance slipped through their fingers. I didn't use the money to prove anything to them. I used it to build a stable, secure future, the kind Grandpa always believed I deserved. My relationship with my parents never fully healed. Some wounds don't close just because the truth comes out. But I stopped needing their approval to know my own worth. Grandpa didn't leave me wealth because he thought I needed saving. He left me proof that he had always seen exactly who I was. If you've ever felt the sting of inheritance betrayal, or watched a family member twist the truth to push you out of something you were promised, I want to hear from you. Tell me if someone in your life has ever tried to hide money, property, or the truth from you. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to love you the most, subscribe and become part of a community that understands exactly what that feels like. Because sometimes the truth isn't loud. Sometimes it survives quietly, in old emails, in forgotten documents, in memories nobody thought to erase. Click hype to help this story reach someone who needs it. So let me ask you this. Did Elena's choice to stop begging for her family's approval and stand up for what was legally hers resonate with you? If it did, hit that like button and tell me about a time your own family tried to push you aside. And remember, clicking hype helps stories like this one reach the people who feel powerless in situations just like it. Because sometimes, the person everyone tries to silence is the one who was holding the truth all along.